I went to a simple work event with my husband. Then he kept introducing me wrong. This is Nicole, he said. Just my name. No, wife. When one woman smiled and said, I thought you were single, my stomach dropped. I didn't even want to go. Jason kept bringing it up all week, like it was small, like it didn't matter, but somehow also like it really did. He never pushed hard. He didn't need to. He just repeated it enough times that saying no started to feel like I was being difficult. It's important, he said that morning while getting ready. Just show up with me. That's it. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in sweatpants, watching him button his shirt like he was getting ready for something bigger than just a networking thing. You said it was casual, I told him. It is, he said quickly. It's just people from work. Nothing intense. That should have been my first clue. Jason didn't overdress for casual things. Ever. He was the kind of person who hated standing out unless he had a reason. But that night, everything about him looked intentional. The shirt, the jacket, even the way he checked himself in the mirror twice before turning to me. You ready? He asked. I hesitated just long enough for him to notice. It's not a big deal, he added, softer this time. I didn't argue. I just nodded and got up. The drive into Raleigh was quiet. Not tense, just quiet in a way that made me aware of every little thing. The sound of the turn signal. The way he kept adjusting the volume on the radio without settling on anything. His hand tapping lightly against the steering wheel. You okay? I asked at one point. Yeah, he said too fast. Why? You just seem distracted. I've got a lot going on with work right now, he said. This event's part of it. That didn't answer anything, but I let it go. When we got to the hotel, I knew immediately this wasn't what he'd described. It wasn't casual. Not even close. The lobby alone felt too polished, too put together, and when we followed the signs toward the ballroom, it only got worse. People were dressed like they actually cared about being seen. Clean lines, tailored jackets, heels that clicked sharply against the floor. Conversations that sounded rehearsed even when they weren't. I slowed down without realizing it. Are you sure this is the right place? I asked quietly. Jason glanced back at me and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, just stay close, okay? Stay close. Something about that stuck with me immediately, but I couldn't explain why. Inside the ballroom, everything felt too bright, too open. Like there was nowhere to hide if you suddenly realized you didn't belong there. Jason grabbed 2 drinks from a passing tray and handed one to me. Just relax, he said. We'll make a quick round, talk to a few people, and that's it. I nodded, even though I already felt like I was performing. The first few conversations were exactly what I expected. Surface level, polite, forgettable. Names I didn't catch. Jobs I didn't care about. Smiles that lasted just long enough to be acceptable. But then I started noticing something. Not one big thing. Just small details. The way Jason kept scanning the room while people were talking to him. Not casually. Actively. Like he was looking for someone. Or making sure someone wasn't there. The way his grip on his glass tightened every time someone new approached. And then the introductions. This is Nicole, he said to the first group. I didn't think anything of it at first. It was quick. Casual. Easy to miss. Until it happened again. This is Nicole. Same tone. Same pause. Same, nothing. No, my wife. No context. No connection to him at all. I felt something shift in my chest, just slightly. By the third time, I knew it wasn't an accident. We were standing with 2 men and a woman who worked in marketing, and Jason gave the same introduction again. This is Nicole. That was it. I smiled, because what else was I supposed to do? But this time, I let a small laugh slip out. Just Nicole. I said lightly. No title. It was meant to sound like a joke. Jason laughed too, but it fell off. I mean, they don't need all that. The woman chuckled politely, but I caught the brief look she gave him. It was quick, but it was there. A look that said something wasn't lining up. I ignored it. I told myself I was reading too much into nothing. That maybe he just didn't like over-explaining. That maybe I was the one making it weird. But the pattern didn't stop. Every introduction was the same. My name and nothing else. And every time, Jason seemed just a little more tense. At one point, I leaned closer to him while someone else was talking. Why aren't you saying I'm your wife? I asked under my breath. He didn't look at me. Can we not do this here? That answer landed wrong. I'm just asking, I said. I know, he replied, still smiling at the people in front of us. It's just not a big deal. Not a big deal. I nodded like I agreed, but I didn't. Because it was starting to feel like one. We moved through the room slowly, and the more time passed, the more I felt like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to see. Not a single moment big enough to call out. Just a collection of small things that didn't make sense together. The way people reacted to him. The way he reacted back. The way I kept feeling slightly out of place, even standing right next to him. And then we drifted toward the bar. That's when everything shifted. There was a small group there. 2 men and a woman. Nothing unusual at first glance. But the second Jason saw her, his entire posture changed. It was subtle. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. I did. His shoulders tightened. His expression flattened for just a second before he forced it back into something normal. Hey, he said. Too casual. The woman turned toward us slowly, like she already knew who it was before she even looked. She was put together in a way that didn't feel accidental. Calm. Controlled. The kind of person who notices everything but doesn't show it. Hey, she said. Didn't expect to see you here. Something about the way she said it made my stomach drop. Not surprised. Not really. More like, this wasn't supposed to happen. I stayed quiet, just watching. Jason cleared his throat slightly. Yeah, I came by for a bit. Came by. Like he didn't bring me with him. There was a pause. Just a second too long. Then he gestured toward me. This is Nicole. That was it. No hesitation. No correction. No change. Just my name. The woman's eyes moved to me, and she smiled politely. Hi. Hi, I said back. Up close, I could see something in her expression that made my chest tighten. Recognition. Not of me specifically, but of the situation. I'm Catherine, she said. The name hit something in the back of my mind, but I couldn't place it yet. I nodded. Nice to meet you. She held my gaze for just a second longer than necessary. Then she looked back at Jason. And that's when she said it. I thought you were single. Everything inside me went completely still. Jason didn't respond right away. And in that silence, I realized something that made everything else suddenly make sense. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't bad phrasing. This was intentional. And whatever version of Jason existed in her world, I wasn't part of it. For a second, nobody moved. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet in the worst way, like the air shifted and everyone felt it but didn't know where to look. I thought you were single. Catherine didn't say it aggressively. She didn't even sound angry. If anything, she sounded confused. Like she was trying to correct something that didn't make sense. I turned my head slowly toward Jason. He still hadn't answered. Jason, I said, low enough that only he could hear me. He finally let out a small breath, like he'd been holding it. It's complicated, he said. Complicated. Of course it was. Catherine's expression didn't change much, but I saw it. That small shift. Confusion turning into something sharper. Not quite anger yet, but getting there. Complicated, she repeated. Jason glanced between us like he was trying to manage the situation in real time, like this was just another problem he could smooth over if he said the right words. We should probably not do this here, he said, forcing a smile. Do what? I asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Clarify what you told her? I added. The two men standing with Catherine suddenly looked very interested in their drinks. One of them muttered something about stepping away, and within seconds, it was just the three of us. That silence again. Heavy. Awkward. Real. Catherine crossed her arms, not defensive, just grounding herself. What exactly is going on? She asked. Not to me. To him. And that told me everything. I looked at her, really looked this time. Trying to piece together why her name felt familiar, why her reaction felt like more than just surprise. How do you know him? I asked. She hesitated, just briefly, like she was deciding how honest to be. We used to see each other, she said. A while ago. Used to. I felt something tighten in my chest. And now? I asked. She looked at Jason again before answering. We've stayed in touch. Stayed in touch. That phrase landed differently now. I turned back to Jason. You didn't think to mention that? I didn't think it mattered, he said quickly. That you're still in contact with someone you dated? I said. It's not like that, he said. Again. It's never like that, I replied. Catherine's eyes flicked between us, and I could see it happening in real time. The pieces falling into place for her too. Not all of them yet, but enough. Wait, she said slowly. You're married. She wasn't asking me. She was asking him. Jason ran a hand through his hair. Catherine. Yes or no, she said, firmer now. He didn't answer immediately. And that was worse than anything he could have said. I stepped in before he could spin it. Yes, I said. We are. Catherine went completely still. You told me you were single, she said, her voice quieter now. I said I wasn't. In anything serious, Jason replied. The second he said it, I felt it hit. Not just her. Me. Not in anything serious? I repeated. He looked at me like he regretted saying it immediately, but it was too late. That's not what I meant, he said. Then what did you mean? I asked. He didn't answer. Catherine let out a small, disbelieving laugh. So this whole time, she said, more to herself than to either of us. You've been, what? Just leaving that part out? It wasn't relevant, Jason said. I actually felt my stomach drop at that. Not relevant. 5 years of marriage. Not relevant. Catherine shook her head slightly. You stayed over at my place 2 months ago. The words hit like a physical impact. I didn't even react right away. It was like my brain refused to process it for a second. I turned to Jason slowly. You what? It wasn't like that, he said immediately. Again. The same line. Over and over. Catherine's eyes widened slightly. You told me your place was being renovated. I let out a quiet breath that didn't feel like mine. Is that true? I asked him. He didn't look at me. It was just easier to say that, he muttered. Easier. Everything was easier for him. Lying. Avoiding. Managing. Catherine took a step back, like she needed space to think. You told me you didn't want anything serious because you were focused on work, she said. You said relationships were too complicated right now. Jason stayed silent. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That part's true, I said. Apparently. Catherine looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time, there was no distance in her expression. Just understanding. You didn't know, she said. It wasn't a question. No, I said. I didn't. There was another pause, but this one felt different. Less confusion. More clarity. Catherine exhaled slowly. Wow. That was all she said, but it carried everything. Disappointment. Anger. Embarrassment. I felt it too. Not just at him. At myself. For standing there, for missing it, for being the only one in the room who didn't know the full version of my own life. Jason finally tried again. It wasn't like I planned this, he said. I looked at him. Then what was the plan? I asked quietly. He didn't have an answer. Of course he didn't. Because there was no plan. Just a system. A version of himself for me. A version of himself for her. And he thought they'd never collide. Until they did. Right there. In the middle of a room full of people who suddenly felt very far away. Catherine shook her head again, softer this time. I can't do this right now. She looked at me one last time, and there was something in her expression I didn't expect. Not pity. Not judgment. Just recognition. Like we were standing on the same side of something neither of us chose. I'm sorry, she said. Then she walked away. Just like that. No scene. No yelling. Just gone. And somehow that felt worse. I stood there for a second longer, staring at the space she left behind. Then I turned to Jason. Don't, I said before he could speak. I can explain. I don't want an explanation here, I cut in. Not like this. His jaw tightened slightly. So what, you're just going to walk out? I held his gaze. Yes. I set my glass down on the nearest table without looking and started toward the exit. I could hear him behind me almost immediately. Nicole, wait. I didn't. Not until we were outside, in the parking lot, where the noise of the event faded into something distant and irrelevant. Only then did I stop. And even then I didn't turn around right away. Because I already knew whatever he was about to say wasn't going to fix anything. The air outside felt colder than it should have been. Or maybe it was just me. I stood there in the parking lot, arms crossed, staring at nothing while everything replayed in my head at the same time. Not in order. Not clean. Just pieces. I thought you were single. You stayed over at my place. Not in anything serious. I heard the door behind me open, then close harder than necessary. Nicole. I didn't turn. Can you at least look at me? Jason said. I let out a slow breath before facing him. What? I asked. Not angry. Not loud. Just tired. That seemed to throw him off more than anything. It's not what you think, he said. Of course. It's never what I think, I replied. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like we were still inside. You're taking this out of context. Okay, I said. Give me the context. He hesitated. That hesitation again. Every time he paused, it felt like watching him decide which version of reality he was going to present. It wasn't serious, he said finally. I blinked. You stayed at her place, I said. What part of that isn't serious? I didn't have anywhere else to go that night, he said quickly. I stared at him. You have a house, I said slowly. Our house. He rubbed his face. It was late. I'd been drinking. It just made more sense. To go home with someone who thinks you're single? That's not what happened. Then what had happened? He didn't answer right away. And somehow, that silence told me everything again. You didn't correct her, I said. At any point. I didn't think it would go this far. There it was. Not regret. Not guilt. Just miscalculation. I laughed quietly. That's your defense? You didn't think you'd get caught. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. He shook his head, frustrated now. You're twisting it. No, I said. I'm finally understanding it. That landed. I saw it in his face. For the first time that night, he didn't have an immediate response ready. I stepped closer, just enough that he couldn't avoid the question. How long? I asked. He frowned. What? How long have you been lying to her about me? I didn't lie. Jason. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw something real. Not defensive. Not controlled. Cornered. A few months, he said quietly. I nodded once. A few months, I repeated. Like saying it out loud would make it make sense. And in those few months, I continued, you never once thought to say, hey, by the way, I'm married? It wasn't that simple. It is that simple. He shook his head again. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. We stayed in touch after we broke up, he said. It wasn't anything major at first. Just messages. Work stuff sometimes. I waited. And then? I asked. And then it just didn't come up, he said. I stared at him. You're telling me your marriage just didn't come up? I didn't want to make things complicated, he said. I felt something shift inside me at that. Complicated for who? I asked. He didn't answer. So I answered for him. For you. He exhaled sharply. You're making this bigger than it is. That was the moment something in me went completely still. Not calm. Not okay. Just done trying to meet him halfway. She thought you were single, I said slowly. She let you stay at her place. You didn't correct her. You didn't tell me. And I'm making it bigger than it is. He didn't respond. Again. Always that silence when the truth got too close. I took a step back. Did you sleep with her? I asked. The question sat between us. Heavy. He looked at me, then away. That's not the point, he said. I nodded. Got it, I replied. Nicole. No, I cut in. You don't get to decide what the point is right now. He ran a hand through his hair again, pacing slightly like he needed to burn off the pressure. It didn't mean anything, he said. There it was. That line. The one people use when they know exactly what it meant, but don't want to say it out loud. It meant enough for you to lie about me, I said. He stopped pacing. That's not fair. I let out a small breath. Fair. I repeated. You introduced me as your friend. He didn't say anything. You stood there, I continued, in front of someone you've been seeing, and you said my name like I was just someone you brought along. I panicked, he said. You planned this, I replied. That's not true. It is, I said. You just didn't plan for me to be in the same room as her. That hit. I saw it. That quick flicker in his expression. Confirmation. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. Cars passed in the distance. The muffled noise from inside the hotel leaked through the walls. Life kept moving like nothing had changed. But everything had. I didn't think it would collide like this, he admitted finally. There it was. The truth. Not a full confession. But enough. You built two versions of your life, I said. And you thought they'd never meet. He didn't argue. Because he couldn't. I shook my head slowly. You didn't just lie to her, I said. You lied to me. I didn't lie to you, he said quickly. I just didn't tell you everything. I actually smiled at that. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. That's lying, I said. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Nothing left to say. I looked at him one more time. Really looked. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel confused. Or shocked. Or even angry. Just clear. I'm going home, I said. He stepped forward slightly. We should talk about this. We will, I said. Just not here. And not like this. You're seriously just leaving? Yes. And what? I'm just supposed to. I don't care what you do tonight, I said. That stopped him. Because that was new. I turned and walked toward the car. This time, he didn't follow right away. And that told me something too. He wasn't trying to fix it. He was trying to manage it. And for the first time, I wasn't letting him. The drive home felt longer than usual. Not because of traffic. There wasn't any. The roads were clear, the city quieter the further I got from downtown. It should have felt calm. It didn't. Every red light felt too long. Every second gave my brain more space to replay everything that had just happened, except now it wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity, and somehow that made it worse. He didn't slip up. He didn't make a one-time mistake. He maintained it. That thought kept looping in my head the entire drive. When I pulled into the driveway in Cary, the house looked exactly the same as it always did. Porch light on. Curtains drawn. Everything normal. That felt wrong. I sat in the car for a minute before going inside, just staring at the front door like it belonged to someone else. Then I grabbed my keys and went in. The silence inside was heavier than usual. No TV. No background noise. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of the air conditioning. I set my bag down and stood there in the kitchen, not moving. This was the part one didn't know how to do. There wasn't a script for this. No clear next step. Just 1,000 questions and none of them had answers that would make anything better. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would. I thought I'd fall apart the second I was alone, but instead, everything inside me felt controlled. Like my emotions were there, just held back behind something solid. I walked upstairs slowly, changed out of my clothes, washed my face, and sat on the edge of the bed. Everything still felt unreal. Then my phone buzzed. Jason. I stared at his name on the screen for a second before answering. Yeah, I said. Did you make it home? He asked. Like this was normal. Yes. Okay, good. There was a pause. I think we should talk, he added. I let out a quiet breath. We will. Can I come home? The question caught me off guard. Not because of what he asked, but how he asked it. Careful. Measured. Like he wasn't sure what he was walking into. It's your house, I said. Another pause. That's not what I meant. I didn't respond. I don't want to make things worse, he said. I almost laughed. You already did, I replied. Silence. I'm not trying to fight, he said. Neither am I. That was the truth. I wasn't angry in the way he expected. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't breaking things or demanding answers. That probably made this harder for him. I'll be there in 20, he said. Okay. I hung up before he could say anything else. Then I just sat there. Waiting. Not for him. For myself. Trying to figure out what I actually felt. Because the obvious answers didn't fit. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just anger. It was something deeper. Something colder. Like I had just seen a version of my life that I didn't agree to be part of. 20 minutes later, I heard the front door open. Then close. His footsteps moved through the house slowly, like he was giving me time to react. I didn't move. Eventually, he came upstairs. He stopped in the doorway of the bedroom, not stepping in right away. Hey, he said. I looked up at him. He looked the same. Same face. Same posture. Same person I'd been married to for 5 years. And somehow, completely different. Hey, I replied. Another pause. He stepped inside finally and leaned against the dresser, keeping some distance between us. That wasn't supposed to happen like that, he said. I tilted my head slightly. How was it supposed to happen? He frowned. I don't know. Just, not like that. So you had a better version planned? I asked. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He ran a hand through his hair again. He'd been doing that a lot tonight. I messed up, he said. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said. You did. Another silence. He shifted his weight slightly. It didn't mean anything. I held his gaze. You keep saying that, I replied. And it keeps meaning less every time. It's true, he insisted. It wasn't serious. I let out a quiet breath. Then why didn't you tell her about me? I asked. He hesitated. Because it would have made things complicated, he said. There it was again. That word. Complicated. I stood up slowly. Jason, I said, you keep saying that like it explains something. It doesn't. He looked at me, frustrated now. You're acting like I was living a double life. I didn't raise my voice. You were. That stopped him. No, I wasn't, he said. I just didn't bring certain things up. I almost smiled again. That's the same thing, I said. It's not, he pushed back. Okay, I said. Then explain the difference. He opened his mouth. Then stopped. Because there wasn't one. I took a step closer. You let her believe you were single, I said. You stayed at her place. You kept seeing her. And you came home to me like none of it existed. I wasn't seeing her like that, he said quickly. Then how were you seeing her? He didn't answer. Again. Always that silence. I shook my head slightly. You know what the worst part is? I said. He didn't respond. You didn't think you were doing anything wrong, I continued. You just thought you were managing it. That's not fair, he said. It is, I replied. Because if you thought it was wrong, you would have stopped. He looked at me like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Because he knew I was right. I didn't want to hurt anyone, he said quietly. That line again. I let out a slow breath. So instead, I said, you lied to both of us. I didn't lie. Jason. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. He stopped. The room went quiet again. And for the first time that night, he looked tired. Not defensive. Not frustrated. Just tired. Like he was finally realizing there wasn't a version of this where he came out of it clean. I don't know what you want me to say, he admitted. That was honest. Maybe the first honest thing he'd said. I don't want you to say anything, I replied. He looked at me confused. Then what do you want? I paused. Because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't one thing. I want to understand how long I've been living in something that wasn't real, I said. That hit. I saw it. He looked away. And that told me everything I needed to know. Because if he couldn't even answer that, then this wasn't just about tonight. It was about everything before it. And I wasn't sure I even knew where to start anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. Jason eventually stopped talking, like he realized there wasn't anything he could say that wouldn't make it worse. He stayed on his side of the bed, quiet, barely moving. I could feel he was awake too, but neither of us said anything. It felt like we were both waiting for something. Morning didn't fix it. It just made everything clearer. Sunlight came through the blinds like it always did, landing across the same walls, the same furniture, the same life, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. Jason got up before me. I heard him moving around downstairs, opening cabinets, pouring coffee. Normal sounds. Routine sounds. That felt wrong too. Like he could just wake up and continue. I stayed in bed a little longer, staring at the ceiling, going over everything again. Not the event itself anymore. The months before it. The things I ignored. The nights he said he was working late. The times he came home distracted. The way he kept his phone face down more often than he used to. None of it felt obvious before. Now it felt loud. When I finally went downstairs, he was standing in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee in his hand. "Morning," he said. Like this was normal. "Morning," I replied. I poured myself coffee, mostly for something to do, and stood across from him. There was space between us now. Not physical distance, just something else. "I've been thinking," he said. I didn't respond. "I know how it looked last night," he continued. But it wasn't. I held up my hand slightly. "Don't," I said. He stopped. "I'm not doing this again," I added. "Not if it's just going to be the same explanation." "It's not the same," he said. "It is," I replied. "You just use different words." He went quiet. I took a sip of my coffee, then set the cup down. "Did you ever plan on telling me?" I asked. He looked at me confused. "Telling you what?" "That she still thought you were single." He hesitated. "I didn't think it mattered," he said. I nodded slowly. "Of course you didn't." "That's not fair," he said. "What's not fair?" I asked. "That I expected my husband to not lie about being married?" "I didn't lie," he said again. I didn't even react this time. That argument was over. "I want you to answer something honestly," I said. "I am being honest." "No," I replied. "You're being careful." That landed. He didn't respond. I leaned back against the counter. "How many times did you see her?" I asked. He looked down at his cup. "A few," he said. "A few," I repeated. "That's not a number." "I don't know," he said. "Maybe 5 or 6 times." 5 or 6. I let that settle. "And the night you stayed over?" I asked. He closed his eyes briefly. "It just happened," he said. I almost laughed. Everything just happened with him. Nothing was ever a choice. "Did you tell her after last night?" I asked. He looked up. "What?" "That you're married," I clarified. He hesitated. Again. "No," he said. That hit harder than I expected. "You haven't even told her?" I asked. "I didn't think it was the right time," he said. I stared at him. "There's a right time?" I said. "I mean after everything that happened." "Jason," I cut in, "she found out because I was standing next to you." "I know. And you still haven't told her directly." He didn't answer. That silence again. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Okay," he repeated. "Yeah," I said. "That tells me everything." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you're still trying to manage it," I replied. "You're still thinking about how to make this easier for you." "That's not what I'm doing." "It is," I said. "Because if you cared about fixing this, you would have told her already." He looked frustrated again. "Why does that matter right now?" I stared at him. "Because that question showed me exactly where his priorities were." "It matters," I said slowly, "because it shows me you haven't actually chosen anything." "What does that mean?" "It means you haven't chosen me," I said. The words hung there between us. Heavy. Real. "That's not true," he said immediately. "Then prove it," I replied. He didn't say anything. Because he couldn't. Because proving it would require him to do something uncomfortable. Something clear. Something final. And he didn't want that. I pushed myself off the counter and walked toward the living room. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm going to get some air," I said. "We're not done talking." "I am for now." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Nicole," he called after me. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "What?" I asked. He hesitated. "I don't want this to end like this," he said. I stood there for a second. Then I finally turned back. "Then you should have thought about that before," I said. I left before he could respond. The drive this time felt different. Not heavy. Not overwhelming. Just clear. For the first time since the night before, my thoughts weren't jumping around. They were lining up. He didn't just lie. He avoided choosing. He kept things open. With her. With me. And somehow convinced himself that wasn't the same as betrayal. I pulled into a small coffee shop in North Hills and parked. I didn't even check my phone. I just sat there for a second, staring out the windshield. Then I went inside. The place was quiet, just a few people working on laptops, soft music playing in the background. Normal. Grounded. I ordered something I didn't really want and sat down by the window. And that's when it hit me. Not the anger. Not the hurt. The realization. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't trying to figure out what happened. I already knew. The only thing left was deciding what I was going to do about it. I sat in that coffee shop longer than I planned to. At first, I thought I'd call someone. Rachel, maybe. Tell her everything, get her opinion, hear something that would help me make sense of it. But the longer I sat there, the more I realized I didn't actually need advice. I already understood what happened. What I needed was space to accept it. The noise of the espresso machine, the low conversations around me, people typing on laptops, it all felt steady. Predictable. Nothing like the night before. For the first time since the event, I wasn't replaying every detail. I was thinking forward. That was new. My phone buzzed on the table. "Jason." I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. And again. I flipped it over so I wouldn't have to see his name. It wasn't anger. It just felt unnecessary. I stayed there until my coffee went cold, then I got up and left. I didn't rush home. I drove around Raleigh for a while, no destination, just letting the quiet settle in. By the time I pulled back into the driveway, I felt steady. Not okay, but clear. Jason was sitting on the couch when I walked in, phone in his hand, like he'd been waiting for me to respond. You didn't answer, he said. I saw, I replied. He stood up. Can we talk now? I set my keys down slowly. We already did, I said. No, we didn't, he said. We went in circles. We didn't actually fix anything. I looked at him. There's nothing to fix, I said. His expression shifted immediately. What does that mean? It means this isn't something you fix with a conversation, I replied. He stepped closer. So what, you're just done? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I had been thinking about that all morning. Not emotionally. Logically. Calmly. I don't think this is something I can just move past, I said. That's not fair, he said quickly. That word again. Fair. I almost smiled. You keep saying that, I replied. Like this is about fairness. It is, he said. You're acting like I cheated on you. I held his gaze. You let another woman believe you were single, I said. You stayed at her place. You kept seeing her. You hid all of it from me. That's not cheating, he said. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Then what is it? He didn't answer. Because there wasn't a word he could use that would make it sound better. It didn't mean anything, he said again. I let out a quiet breath. That's the problem, I replied. You keep saying that like it makes it better. It does, he said. No, I said. It doesn't. I stepped a little closer, not angry, just certain. If it didn't mean anything, then you lied for nothing, I said. You risked everything for something that didn't even matter. He went quiet. And I saw it. That moment where he realized there wasn't a version of this that made him look reasonable. I didn't think it would get this far, he said. That's the only honest thing you've said, I replied. He looked at me like that wasn't the reaction he expected. I didn't plan it, he added. I know, I said. That seemed to confuse him. You do? Yeah, I said. You didn't plan it. You just didn't stop it. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. Because it was true. And he knew it. The room went quiet again. I walked past him into the kitchen, then back into the living room like I needed to move just to keep my thoughts steady. He stayed where he was. So what happens now, he asked. That question felt different. Less defensive. More real. I stopped and looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't see the version of him I was used to. I saw exactly who he was. Someone who avoided hard decisions until they made themselves. Someone who kept things open because closing them meant choosing. And someone who thought that as long as he didn't say things out loud, they didn't count. I think we need space, I said. His jaw tightened. Space for what? For me to figure out if I can even trust you again, I replied. I didn't break your trust like that, he said. I didn't even react. Because at this point, arguing definitions felt pointless. You did, I said simply. Another silence. Are you leaving? He asked. I paused. I think I should, I said. For how long? I don't know. He nodded slowly, like he didn't like the answer but couldn't argue with it. And what am I supposed to do? He asked. I looked at him. Really looked. Tell the truth, I said. He frowned. About what? Everything, I replied. To her. To yourself. Maybe then you'll understand what you actually did. He didn't respond. Because that required something he hadn't done yet. Ownership. I went upstairs and packed a small bag. Not everything. Just enough. Clothes. Charger. Basics. Nothing dramatic. Nothing final. Just enough. When I came back down, he was still standing there. Watching. You're really leaving, he said. Yes. He didn't try to stop me. That told me something too. I walked to the door, opened it, then paused. Not because I was unsure. Just because I wanted to say one last thing. I turned back. You didn't lose me last night, I said. You lost me every time you chose not to tell the truth. He didn't say anything. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt calm. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally understood it. He didn't cheat in the way people usually think. But he built something just as damaging. A version of his life that only worked if I didn't see it. And now I did. I don't know what he's done since I left. I don't know if he told her the truth. I don't know if he's still trying to manage it, or if he's finally facing it. What I do know is this. I'm not confused anymore. And somehow, that hurts less than not knowing. So now I'm sitting here, in a place that doesn't feel like mine yet, trying to decide what comes next. Because part of me keeps asking the same question over and over. If someone never technically cheated, but built an entire lie around you anyway, is that something you forgive? Or is that worse?